right above my refrigerator. Some people would say, well, that's a crazy place to put it, but not necessarily.
Hey guys, welcome back for another Real Rooms. I've got an awesome episode here. This is Kevin's home theater in a living room, yay, with a 120-inch screen. And the coolest part, I think, wait until you see where he hid the equipment. Never seen that before. Great job, man. And it's all DIY. This is exactly what I like to see in this series. Awesome stuff, man. Hope you all enjoy it. And if you want to see your stuff featured, I have a link down to the intro video all about the project in this description. It's everything you need to know. Super easy. Everybody is welcome.
Hi, my name is Kevin. This is my living room home theater. Kind of give you a little overview. I've been into home theater for about 20 years now. I'm at 53, so you could do the math. Got started mostly when I was a kid, actually. Enjoyed movies, going to the theaters quite often, renting movies. Worked at local video shops and eventually Blockbuster for about 15 years. And then I worked for Redbox for almost 8 years. Kind of really, a movie buff. Love movies, love getting into movies. My first equipment that got me started into it was the InFocus 4805. I had a small little Sony AVR. It did Dolby Pro Logic, nothing fancy. Had an MTX system, it was 3.0. It worked, it was good. Then I moved on to the BenQ HD projector. That's when I started getting really serious. I started making a blackout cloth screen. It was about 95 inches. I had a Denon with a Boston Acoustics, box system. It was all in one. It served its purpose. It was good. Was not used in this home, by the way. It was used in older homes as we moved through different houses that we bought and stuff. Moved on to the LG when we moved into this house. I bought the LG HU810 laser projector. It was a 4K DLP. Had the Onkyo RZ820, and I got one of those Focal systems. It was called the SIB Evo. It was a sound in a box, basically. It was another box system made in China. Not exactly the Focal that I was expecting, but it did well for a couple of years while we were living here. Eventually upgraded, changed out the blackout cloth screen and upgraded. The first thing we ended up doing was upgrading the screen while I still had the LG. This is basically the Qual Gear 120 inch. It's a negative gain screen. It works great. It's actually just a slight tinge of gray to it, mostly white, but does have a slight tinge of gray to it. Really helps with the black levels at night. These blinds are usually down and it's usually dark at night when we're watching stuff. I rarely ever watch anything in the daytime. I'm going to send a B-roll attached to this. It's going to show what my living room looks like without the screen hung. Um, let's see here. It's basically hung. I've got two hangers into the ceiling, and it holds the back of the screen up, and it holds it just flush enough that I get a very good picture at night. Actually, spectacular. It's a very good screen for what I've paid for it. It was not much at the time. I think it was under 400. It's a great, great projector screen. I just wasn't, I guess I was not really comfortable with all the dialing in I had to do with that, the LG. LG had a lot of issues with color. It was overblown in the blue and the reds were very sparkling. And it was a DLP, so you already know that the black levels and contrast were not the best. I was hesitant to jump in. I was not a big fan of Epson. I had looked at the Epson projectors. It was like looking through a screen door. I could not get used to the little blockiness of the picture quality. Inevitably looked at the JVCs, was not a big fan of the JVCs because they would just seem too dark and over bloated in the bright areas. I had seen some at my local Best Buy Magnolias, compared them to the Sonys. What blew me away about the Sony projectors, which by the way, that's the projector. It's the Sony 5000 ES. What blew me away about this projector versus anything that JVC had currently had in the price range was basically just not only was the sharpness, it was extremely sharp. It was extremely vibrant. The colors on it were very great out the box, unlike JVC's having to dial those in. Really enjoyed them. The comparison of them. Inevitably just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to settle with getting the Sony. Sony was the way to go for me. I like the video processing, and the motion handling was very superior to the JVC. Moving on, I do now have the Focal systems. I'm using the Cora 806 left, right, and center. I'm also using the RSL Speedwoofer 12S. We basically call it the mini fridge. It's very big, very powerful, really fills this room up. Just to give you an overview of what we're looking with is basically to an open concept, not only to my dining room, but also to the kitchen area. Um, it posed challenges when we first got in here. I was thinking, okay, how was I going to make this work? And we did a lot of research when I bought this house to make this work. Got with the contractor and had some of the wiring done so that it made it very easy for me to get what I needed done, basically. Because if you've noticed in the front, is I have no equipment in the front except for a Sony 4K player that's connected to an LG 77-inch OLED behind this screen, which again is something you'll see when I shoot the B-roll of this. For my side, I'm using the Focal 706 series Chorus. It's not the Cora, it's the ones that came out just before the Coras came out. They're very timber matched, so it wasn't an issue. They're using the same, most of the same drivers as well as the tweeters are identical. So it really kind of ties everything in. So everything is matched perfectly from front to back. Also, I did get two speakers that I installed in the top. Those are Sonance. They're the Mag 6.5s. I got one on the left, one on the right. They're basically you can actually pivot the woofer and the tweeter independently to your listening position, which helps quite often with my seating area. So I'm only using two tops for my height channels. I considered going four, but right now it really fills in the room quite well that I don't seem to have any nulls or issues when watching Atmos content or DTSX content. Again, I've also got one in this corner here of a Focal 706. I'm using Mount It Hardware is the name of the company. It's the same one that I'm using for my ceiling mount for the projector. Um, Works great. I love most of the mounted equipment. It also for the center channel, I'm using mounted as well. They have L brackets that go right into the fireplace. I was hesitant about putting screws into the fireplace, but these always can be sanded down and refinished with no problem, especially with a painted surface. And it really works well with where it's at. I've had some people say, well, isn't that sitting too high, your screen? And at first you would think yes, but when sitting down, you really don't get that aspect. It's basically like sitting down in a movie theater because once we're sitting down in our reclining area, which is basically a home theater style seating from rooms to go, uh, it leans back perfectly. So you're basically just staring straight at the screen. Um, the speakers, I've tried to get them the best as placing them at ear level across the entire area of the room to match, except for the center channels just up a tad bit high. You may think also it's a little unorthodox to have my bookshelf speakers on the sides. laying on their sides. I didn't feel that way at first until I started listening to them, and I really realized that the way that the tweeter disperses into the room, it expands the soundstage almost as if I had front wides. So the way that my system goes from left to right to center is real not only cohesive, but it's also the sound that I get from it is very immersive. It really almost seems like it's bouncing from the top to the bottom, like when I watched the movie Prometheus. And at the very beginning, they're in the expedition in that mountainside, and you have some of the pebble pieces from the rock area that they're breaking through to the looking at the monuments. You could hear the little crumblings of the stones falling. You would almost swear that they're coming from not where the speaker's at, all the way laying to the ground, even though my speakers are placed where they are. So that was a great surprise. Um, Going back to that, again, everything was wired in, and my equipment is located right above my refrigerator. Some people would say, well, that's a crazy place to put it, but not necessarily. And this is the equipment that I'm currently working with. I have an Emotiva, that's the Basex A7. That is the Sony 5000 ES AVR. And then I'm using the Panasonic 820 or UB820. I replaced the 420 because I like the way that this one has extra settings that can be made for the projector. It's very, very well done. All of my wires are cleanly ran through the top of the ceiling up there. Everything runs through the process from the processor to the Emotiva. So I'm pushing just enough wattage that I need for the room. It stays cool because I use AC Infinity fans. I got one on each side, and it runs like a vortex of air throughout the whole system to keep it cool when it's running. When it's not, it's turned off. Everything works real well. Um, Now I basically have the wires for the projector running through this area that you cannot see because I hid it with ground molding and such. I do have a surge protector protecting all the equipment that's behind there, and the projector is then plugged into it, and the wires come out to the projector here. A little bit unsightly, but it works great. I mean, I don't seem to think it's an eyesore. You'll notice that the cable looks kind of strange. That is one of those Ruba Pro 4K fiber optic HDMI cables that connects into there. So it needs the USB for connection. It works great. I would say that once you work out a few of the little bugs with the system, because it does, you got to make sure you plug it in appropriately and run everything exactly the way it says. I find that the signal is perfect, is great. I don't have any interruption. It works great for what I use it for. I would highly recommend it. And it's got the replaceable tips so that in the future, if there's an upgrade, with the HDMI cables, I don't have to replace the cable. I just replace the tips. Coming through here, excuse the birds making noise. This is basically the view you get from back here, from where I'm cooking in the kitchen. Again, it looks unorthodox. You would think, okay, this looks cozy, but does it really work? At night, I'm going to have some more B-roll sending to show you basically what it looks like at night. Also, how the quality now, because of copyright restrictions and such, I don't want to put anything in there that's going to cause any kind of like strikes. So it's going to be basically some video with like some light audio in the background. That's basically what you're going to get there. But this has been my journey. It's a great. It's worked for my house. Some people think, can you have a living room home theater? Absolutely. At 120 inches, when we're sitting in here in this living room, I can't explain to you how good it is. It's basically like it's better than being in the movie theater. I've had my family and friends come by and say that they've never seen anything that good. Um, my daughter She went to the theaters not too long back ago just to test something out because she wanted to see a new movie. I think it was the Minecraft movie, I'm not sure. And she said to herself, she said, I haven't seen a movie that looks as good as it does at home, and I'm like, well, maybe they're not using better projectors, maybe the sound system, maybe just the expectations change when you have your own system where you can tweak things. But again, it's worked great for me. I would highly recommend anybody that has never tried or maybe been interested. You could do a lot with the living room. Everything in the living room can be modified. So it's just whether or not you want to do it and whether or not you want to make it happen. Me, I would never go back to anything else other than what we are doing now. This is just has been a great experience. My wife, she basically will not watch anything unless it's on this screen. She basically has told me several times that when we have the 77 inch, and remember, 77 inch is a large, large screen. When she gets the screen up, that's when she really starts watching stuff. She will not watch many programs or any movies at all unless it's on the projector screen. And she basically can't wait for the weekends because we will hang this thing up on the weekends on a Friday, and it will not come down to Sunday night or Monday morning. So we pretty much stay watching stuff with the kids. We'll watch, random movies for the family, action movies, sci-fi, whatever, comedy. And then me and my wife will watch a movie at night and enjoy ourselves at night, watching something, separate from them. Again, this is something that I've enjoyed, something that I wanted to share with people. It's actually very possible to set up a home theater in a living room. You just have to know what you want to do with it, and you really want to map it out. What helped is when we built this house, I mapped out exactly how this was going to look. So, of course, once we moved in, it was all just plug and play. Now, for some people, and you don't already have this set up, it can become a little difficult, especially when dealing with a ceiling fan and a projector thinking, can it clear that area? It absolutely can clear that area. I just had to modify the ceiling fan a little bit, and it was no problem at all. It's got much clearance, if you can tell. Again, this is my home theater for my living room. I highly recommend trying it if you haven't. If you have a room and you're interested in doing it and you haven't done it, look into it. There's a lot of people on YouTube that post a lot of things about their home theaters and they put them in living rooms. Some people, especially us here in Louisiana, we don't really have basements, if you know what I mean. So not having basements or any room, I mean, I don't have an extra room, so to speak. So we had to make the best of what we did with having, four kids. We basically did this with it, and we made this the home theater. I was really apt to wanting to do that in the first place. I didn't want a dedicated room because I didn't really want to sacrifice a room with four kids and me and my wife. I just wanted to make sure that we all were sitting comfortable and living our lives. So hope you enjoyed this. Again, sorry for the birds. Again, if you any questions or comments, leave them in the thing on the bottom, the comments, and I'll try to reply back. Thank you for taking time out and have a wonderful day.